Zimbabwe has released a currency that is backed by gold and other commodities. And gold is getting close to its all-time high again at 2,341 bucks. Zimbabwe has a lot of gold. They are a gold exporter. In fact, last year they exported 32 tons of it. Made this gold that currency called the ZiG, or the Zimbabwe Gold, to deal with constant currency insecurity. Unfortunately, it's already causing a bit of instability because a lot of people are abandoning the old currency, but there's not enough of the new currency to actually implement. Before the gold-backed currency, they were using a mixture of their own currency, the Zimbabwe dollar, and then they were also using the US dollar and the euro. But before you start thinking that the dollar is dead, read this line right here where they're saying that the ZiG is backed by gold, other precious minerals, and the US dollar. I think it's a good move for them, and it's not going to do anything to destabilize the world currency because look at their GDP. It's on a steady uptrend, and they're recovering their GDP pre-COVID, which is about $30 billion. Let's compare that GDP to the GDP of, let's say, New York City, which is about $1.2 trillion. So Zimbabwe is about 1/40th the GDP of New York City. But even though Zimbabwe isn't some major economic threat, they are still a very vital component to the world markets and, of course, Africa. Aside from gold, they are also the third largest exporter of tobacco. The main buyers of that tobacco are China, Belgium, South Africa, the UAE, and Germany. They have one of the highest literacy rates in Africa. They also played a huge role in their alliance with the frontline states, meant to take out apartheid in South Africa. Secured their independence in 1980 and changed their name from Rhodesia, the British name, to its real name, Zimbabwe. It was a huge slap in the face for apartheid in South Africa because they showed a majority rule. They allowed their country to be a base of operations for South Africa, Mozambique, and Namibia. There's something historically significant in Zimbabwe that the white world didn't want the rest of the world to know, and that is called Great Zimbabwe. It was an old city built around 1100, was abandoned around 1500. It was a huge, influential city with a lot of great architecture that housed around 20,000 people. And the British tried to hide it. They said it was from construction due to outsiders and explorers rather than the actual Africans who lived there. Hopefully you have the same question as I do. How many more of these illustrious cities have been discovered but just not revealed to the rest of the world because they don't want to know that Africa actually had sophisticated civilizations on the continent long before Westerners came? Because it's proven now that Arab, Indian, and Chinese trade goods were found at this site of Great Zimbabwe. It couldn't have just been one city. And of course, the United States has a long history of voicing their grievances against Zimbabwe because of political corruption and, of course, human rights violations. And I agree. Absolutely. You should absolutely voice your discontent for those kinds of violations. But they were the ones who were actually helping get rid of apartheid in South Africa, while the US just expressed some verbal discontent and employed some sanctions. Back to the Zimbabwe currency. Like I said earlier, they have done this several times over the past 20 years. I hope this time the Zimbabwe Gold sticks. There is a lot of civil unrest within the country, which leads to so much instability, and I'm sure that poor monetary policy has been a huge contributing factor, if not the main one. And you might be wondering, is Zimbabwe going to join BRICS, or are they going to side more with the United States? The country has expressed interest in joining, which it absolutely should. During COVID, when the US printed all of those dollars, Zimbabwe didn't get it, only the American people did, which means the value of the dollar, since there was such a high supply, dropped, which of course hurt the Zimbabwe economy. Zimbabwe joining BRICS isn't going to hurt the dollar, but it will protect the country as a hedge against potentially careless monetary policy from the United States. And China is Zimbabwe's largest foreign direct investor, totaling at about $2 billion. In fact, out of Zimbabwe's top 5 foreign direct investors, 4 of them are in the BRICS nations: Russia, China, South Africa, and the UAE. Even though Zimbabwe does have a small economy, this is going to be a very interesting experiment because it's the first time that I know where a currency is being backed by gold and the United States dollar, which generally have a negative correlation, meaning that usually when the dollar goes down in value, the value of gold goes up. Except for now, if you compare the price of gold to the strength of the US dollar as measured by the DXY, you see the value of the dollar has been going up along with the price of gold. It means that there is a lot of economic uncertainty and the world market is fleeing to the safe havens, which are both gold and the United States dollar and dollar-backed securities like treasuries. And since Zimbabwe's currency, the ZiG, is going to be backed by gold and other precious minerals along with the US dollar, We have to watch out for market forces. Remember that the US abandoned the gold standard in 1971 because foreign nations were buying US dollars and then exchanging them for gold, which took away our gold reserves and hyperinflated our currency. Not hyperinflated, but we were at risk of hyperinflation. And what's to stop current market forces from doing that to Zimbabwe's currency once it leaves the country? If it ever can leave the country. What's to stop a US, a British, or a Japanese investor from, let's say, buying $500 million of the Zimbabwe currency and then immediately asking for gold and the other precious minerals it's backed by? Either way, time will tell, and for some reason, I'm optimistic about Zimbabwe's new project. I'm the Geo Husar, and I just finished shoveling and wheelbarrowing about 108,000 pounds of dirt to the edge of my property. Thanks for watching.